Welcome to Beyond Bite Wings, the business side of dentistry, brought to you by Edwards and Associates PC. Join us as we discuss how to build your dental practice, optimize your income, and plan for your future. This podcast is distributed with the understanding that Edwards and Associates PC is not rendering legal, accounting, or professional advice. Listeners should consult with their business advisors before acting on any of the information that is shared. At Edwards and Associates PC, our business is the business of dentistry. For help or more information, visit our website at enassociates.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Bite Wings. My name's Ash, and in today's episode we have a very special guest. His name is David Mitchell. He's currently a D3 dental student at A&M. And, we were actually attending the SWDC convention where I had the opportunity to run into him, and he asked me a few very interesting questions, and I figured why not have him on one of our episodes where he could ask me those questions, and hopefully me, a self-proclaimed expert in this industry, can help answer some of those questions. So without further ado, David, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Ash?
I'm doing well. Thank you. All right, so how does it feel like to be a dental student?
From D1 to D3, it's been a ride.
Yeah.
I will say it's pretty challenging the first couple of years with science classes and everything going on, but once you transition into clinic your D3 year, you finally get to see what the information can lead to in changing people's lives. So it's nice.
Okay, so that's good. So now you find some value in what you're doing. And it's not just about the money.
No, never about that. I mean, sometimes it's nice because you get to help people, you get to benefit because you can start a family and be financially stable, but that's not the end goal of it.
Right, yeah. And the thing is, you need a little bit of both, right? Something that's going to help you continue on to help people and also to help your family. So nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So I know that most dental schools don't focus a lot on the business side of dentistry, and I have been told numerous times by other dental students that we would love to know more about what we're getting ourselves into, right? And then you also were asking me and some of my other associates certain good questions. So why don't we start with a few of them?
Okay. So yes, I'm currently a dental student, but my background right now is I majored in accounting at the University of Texas at Austin. And I did that just to have a background on what the business side of dentistry would be like, so I'm not caught off guard completely when opening up a new practice, what to look for when working for someone, and how to navigate the financial aspect of dentistry. I think a big question that I have is, what are some of the primary concerns or information that a student in dental school right now should have before heading out into the real world and starting their dental journey?
That's actually a very good question, an excellent question. And I'm actually glad that even someone like you, who comes from a background of business and accounting, is asking these questions, because it's true. There are certain things that come from experience that you're not going to learn from school or from a class. That is if they're offering business classes, right? When you're in dental school. But in my personal opinion, here's what I would say. Dentistry, if you are hopefully thinking of practicing dentistry for the next so many years in the future, where your personal life will also be part of your professional life, meaning maybe you're planning on growing a family, the first thing I would always tell them to focus on would be the location, right? Where is it that you're going to have, let's say, your practice, or where do you see yourself living and growing your family? And then you expand from there. Now, understand this. As a clinician, you know that you're an expert of a certain field, right? And you may have some accounting background, but let's say with picking the right location of where you should have your practice, most likely you don't have that expertise. I certainly don't have that expertise. So you may want to find someone who is an expert in that field that can help you find that right location, right? That's a good fit for you both professionally and personally. And then on the same token, let's say if you are planning on starting a new practice, you'll need financing, right? Unless you have a rich mommy and daddy who's going to give you the money to open it. What kind of lenders do you work with? What would be a good interest rate to pay? Am I getting the best deal that's out there, right? The term lengths. What if I need a more of a creative loan structure where, there's going to be a working capital component to it, because I know if it's a startup, the first 2-3 months, I'm not going to make a lot of money, but I still have to pay payroll. So things like that. And then you find an expert in that area. So you combine all of these people and create what I call a team of experts, right? And these team of experts would be the first thing that I would highly recommend for you to look into, especially as you enter into D4, because it takes a while to form these relationships. Now, of course, you can always do your research yourself, but I will tell you this, there's just so much information out there, whether you're doing a podcast, like listening to podcasts, reading blogs, or going to YouTube videos. It's very hard to see what will apply to you personally.
Right.
So sorting through all that information, sometimes that team of experts can tell you like, hey, you know what, that sounds really good. However, that doesn't apply to someone like you who's maybe planning on opening up a location in Lubbock, Texas, So that would be the first thing I would say. Like, get a team of experts that can help you address some of your concerns, because even though that was one question, I can tell you that's a very broad question that encompasses a lot of other minute things that can be addressed by these team of experts. So that's what I would say.
Okay. I guess another question that I have is, are there any books or podcasts that you recommend to
of course.
hop on and learn about this?
Yeah, well, beyond Bite Wings, of course.
Right.
But Art Wiederman is also another good one. Recently, I've been listening to a lot from Kira. Her podcast is called Dental A-Team. She's a great coach, honestly. And you can tell by listening to her that she's all about educating her listeners on similar platform to ours. And that's always nice, right? Like when you are trying to get your information, you're getting them from a resource that's genuinely invested in your growth and not for their own benefit. Because like people that genuinely care and that have been in this world for a while, they know that if you grow, they're going to grow. It's a team effort. So they don't need to be selfish about it. Like I've had people come up to me, they're like, oh, why do you share so much information on your podcast? Like you could be charging people for this. I'm like, no, I want them to know. And once they realize that, I am genuinely in it for their growth, hopefully they'll see value in that and come to us, It's not about just selling what we know, right? Let's see, there are some online websites, depending on information, like if it's business related, Kiplinger would be a good one. Dental Post, sometimes you just want to read what's on there. Now, here's a weird one, right? So if you already know that you are going to open a practice and your practice is going to be somewhere in a residential area, so to speak, it's never too late to start researching on the platforms where people are talking about dentists, right? So for instance, Nextdoor is a good one. You'd be surprised how many stay-at-home moms are talking on Nextdoor about, hey, who's the best dentist around here to take my kid to, or, who's nice. So you'll get to know what they're talking about, how often are they talking about, and then when it's time for you to sit down with your marketing people, you're like, hey, I've got some data here. Why not use this and help me grow, right?
Right.
So it never hurts being proactive.
What is one of the challenges that you see new grads face whenever they come to a CPA, or what hurdle do they have to come over or overcome whenever they first start out?
That's also another good question. So recent grads almost always will receive an associateship agreement right as they're close to the graduation. And a lot of times what we see them doing is they'll just sign the dotted line and say, okay, I accept this and I'll go in. But you'd be shocked how often we see that some of these, the terms that are included in that associateship agreement is not really in your favor. Mm-hmm. Like the compensation part, sometimes they may say, oh, we're going to give you 25 to 28% of production. And you may say, hey, that's pretty good, right? But then when you come to, let's say, someone like us who reviews these agreements quite often, we may say, hey, based off of that location, it should actually be much higher, closer to 33%, even though you're a general dentist. The other thing we may say is, oh, it should really be 33% of collections, not production, right? Yes, you're going to get paid a month later, but it works in your favor, right? And at other times we may think that no, a percentage off of production might be better. Now, then there are many clauses inside of this agreement. You have exit clauses and non-compete, even though they're not called non-compete, they're called restrictive covenants. So if you're planning on moonlighting somewhere else, you want to make sure that the mile radius included in that is favorable for you. Because what if, typically we see the average of 5 mile radius, but if it's more than that, you want to negotiate that. It's like, hey, I'm going to be moonlighting on these days somewhere else. If you put 15 miles in there, how am I supposed to, do an associateship over there for, I don't know, once a week? Things like that, just making sure that that agreement is reviewed by someone who knows what should be included in that agreement. That would be my first advice. The other thing, and this is more applicable right now, and we're doing this episode recording in 2025, please do your due diligence on whether it's the right time to open up the practice that you've always wanted to, or is it better to just continue to be an associate, right? Because it's not as simple as, either I'm going to be a 1099 associate or I'm going to buy a practice or build a practice. Sometimes there are a lot of other creative options that come along the way, especially if you've been doing an associateship for a while. And let's say the owner of this practice is nearing retirement age and they really like you, you follow their corporate culture, they see growth, they love how you are, they truly see you as a mentee. They may actually give you a really lucrative deal that no bank or any other place can give you. So I would say just take the time to do your due diligence, and maybe something may have worked for a friend or a classmate, but it may be very different for you. So give it at least 2 to 3 years before you decide on whether you should open up a practice or not, especially right now, and especially if you're planning on opening up a practice in an urban area where there's already a lot of competition.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, with the way dentistry's been going, I mean, it's grown and evolved so crazy right now. Everything's different than it was 20, 50 years ago.
It's true.
Not even with just technology that we use in the dental practice, but how dental practices are run.
That's right.
What is the biggest difference that you see when people end up working for a DSO or corporate dentistry as compared to private practice?
That's a very good question. So the simple answer would be, again, I don't think there's one straight answer to that question, and please, my DSO buddies over there, don't get mad at me, right? I'm trying to be completely unbiased. You guys are all my friends from what I've heard, right? So you have to understand that DSOs are backed by PE people, private equity people, meaning these are people that go off of EBITDAs, right? Bottom line numbers. So a lot of times when they're looking into management or operations, I'm not saying this is the only component they look at, but they're mostly looking at KPIs that help increase that bottom line, right? Because they have other investors they have to answer to, right? And they have to make sure that they're getting a return for whatever money they've put in. So because of that, a lot of times the relationship dentistry part of running a business gets impacted, meaning the amount of time, let's say, a dentist spends with the patient gets reduced. Hygiene time, again, is reduced. Let's say a practice that typically used to do an hour per patient, now is doing half an hour per patient. And then even the initial, when a patient is signed on, like when they come in, a lot of it is done online as opposed to, let's say, with the front desk person where the relationship is built. And the main idea behind it is to fit more patients per day. In other words, converting your existing business model into a volume-based model. And especially for a dentist that has been working with, let's say, a practice that's DSO managed, run, and it's now more volume focused, burnout is something that I hear quite a bit. That, they went in, yes, they don't have to worry about the CEO part, they're just worried about the clinical part. They just clock in, do their clinical work, get out. But the amount of patients they have to see on a daily basis, it takes a toll on them. Again, just speaking from just a few of the stories I've heard, not saying that's how it is all across the board. I'm sure different DSOs operate differently. I'm just thinking of a few DSOs that might operate that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think as a current dental student, what do you think would be the top industries? Because I know you said that we work as a team, right?
That's true.
So there's law firms, you need a good lawyer to run a good practice, you need a good CPA, insurance, someone to deal with the insurance. How do you recommend a dental student go about learning more about these? Like, right now we're at a symposium where we're able to talk to people and get to know them better, like me and you. What steps do you think they should take in order to research better and find this person that's the right fit for them?
Okay, that's also an excellent question, especially when sometimes some of us may come off a little salesy and you're like, they all say that. They all say they're the best. How do I know if he or she's actually the best, right? Even though, there are some of us professionals that have been doing this longer than, let's say, others, typically what you're going to see is there's a harmonious relationship amongst us. So for instance, let's say you hired an attorney that's going to help you, I don't know, with the legal stuff, right? When you're opening up a practice. A lot of times you can ask them, hey, is there a CPA you would recommend? And generally this person's probably going to recommend a CPA that they have worked with before and they trust. And, if it's us, it's probably because we must have done something to prove to them that they can vouch for us. Right? So you may have heard from a lot of people about, you need to have that team, but sometimes you will need to vet those people from the other people that's already on your team, right? So it's the word of mouth is strong, the vouching is strong, and typically you're going to notice that it's always that same group of people that's being recommended over and over again. Right. So that's how I would go about it. So you may already have 3 or 4 people predetermined, like this is who I'm going to have on my team, but make sure you talk with each other. Like actually have like team meetings and say, hey, we're going to have a huddle. What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? What do you think of this company? Oh, we're all on the same page? Okay, now let's go.
Gotcha. And now in relations to personal finance, once you graduate and you are a dentist, a lot of these dentists don't have the background or they'll run through their money really quickly. What's your advice on a current dentist or starting out as a dentist, a better way to manage their finances so that they'll be stable long term? That's
true. That's actually a very good question. And I think this actually goes further than just dental students, right? In real life, it's like, what do I do when I enter adulthood? How do I manage my finances? Well, you can always do your own research and see what applies to you. But again, me coming from this background, I always say try to see if you can use a professional that can guide you better. Again, assuming that we're talking about large funds or large debt. Typically with the dentist or a doctor, those student loans can get pretty big. And you want to make sure that you're going about the money that you just started making, coming with a plan on by when you should pay off your student loan, or if there's some income-driven repayment options that you can utilize where hopefully maybe it can be forgiven after a certain number of years. Or how much money should I set aside for taxes? Because maybe in the past while you were going to school or before your school, you used to get W-2 salary where taxes were withheld. But now you're getting something called the 1099 and you see, woohoo, nobody's paying taxes. Right. I guess I don't have to pay taxes. And then
it comes,
you're like, wait, how much?
Yep.
How come nobody told me I needed to set this aside, right? So at least have like one phone call with someone who's knowledgeable about that stuff to just make sure how much money to set aside. Because of the different income tax brackets,
right,
it would be a different amount for different people. Typically what I've seen here in the Texas area, like the compensation that a dental school student would get, I would say just to be on the safe side, set aside at least 1/3, especially if you don't own a house and if you're renting. And again, I'm more than happy to tell you why I just said that, more details. But generally speaking, that's what I would say. Again, it would vary from person to person. That would be just for taxes. The other thing is I'm a big proponent of telling people to set aside money for savings / investing. And again, that may add on to that long-term planning because, the earlier you start, the better it is for you because you have the factor of compounding working in your favor, right? So it's something I always tell someone who just had a kid. It's like start saving for their college now. Like open up a college savings fund and start putting away as little as $100 per month in it. You don't have to worry about like putting thousands of dollars later as they get closer to that college age. Trust me on this, that compounding factor is going to come into play. So things like that, just have someone that's knowledgeable about that on your side. They always say that once you start making a certain amount of money, your best friend is your attorney and your accountant. And then once you graduate and you get to that age, you're going to find out why.
Gotcha. And then Another question that I have, and I know people probably don't think about it until it's later in their career. What do you recommend for retirement, like retirement savings?
What do I recommend? That is very true. So, generally speaking, there's really two components of retirement that one should consider, especially in our field. One is, am I just doing this for tax savings? Or am I also doing this for actual retirement savings, right? Generally, I would say you want to do it for the latter option, where it should give you tax savings as well as, set a certain amount away for your retirement.
Right.
And now, depending on the vehicle, if we're talking about traditional IRA, Roth IRA, self-employed pension plan, SEP, or even a full-blown 401k, right? And then 401k, are you doing it as an employee where you're capped at a certain amount, or are we talking about implementing a 401k plan through the practice where you can go beyond that annual, 24,000, 24 and a half this year? So it will depend on your situation. We have people, especially if they're towards their retirement age, they want to put a lot of money in there. And constantly they're if it's one of our clients, they'll reach out and say, hey, I want to set aside, 100,000, 150,000 away every year because I'm going to retire in the next 10 years. I'm running out of time. That's when we may recommend hey, you have a practice, let's set up a 401k plan through your practice and not just do deferrals only or just company match. Let's utilize all the vehicles like additional match, profit sharing, cash balance. We take all of them in. And then we pay yourself the maximum W-2 salary as possible, because that will increase your limit on how much you can fund your 401k, and just max it out that way, right? And you will get your tax benefit, but again, the goal for this specific example would be, how do I fund the most, the quickest? But then let's say someone your age, you may be like, hey, I still have this many years, I don't have to go that aggressive. What would be a good way? And, I'm thinking of just now opening up a practice. Do I have to do it through a 401k, or can I utilize a different format? And that's when we may say, no, for you, since it's a new practice, SEP might be better than a 401k. So again, in short, I guess what I'm trying to say is it will depend case by case on what your needs are, because there are multiple vehicles. We just need to see what's the right fit for you. So hopefully those were all the questions you have for me. They were good ones.
Thank you.
It was nice meeting you again, David. And thank you so much for agreeing to be on our podcast. And again, if you have more questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Of course. Thank you, Ash. It was great talking to you. And I hope this does help a lot of future dentists out there and people who aren't knowledgeable about it right now. Hopefully they start looking into it and they get more knowledgeable into it in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for listening today. Be sure to subscribe to Beyond by Wings on your favorite podcast platform. For more information, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or reach out to us on our website. You can also shoot us an email at info@eandassociates.com.